Hi and welcome to the Demystifying Mental Toughness podcast for athletes, coaches and professionals who want to achieve their goals faster. I'm David Charlton and I'll be sharing proven methods from leading athletes, coaches and experts that will help you get the most from your talent. Today's show is sponsored by Functional Intelligent Training, who are a sports injury clinic located in Gosforth near Newcastle upon Tyne and specialise in athlete development, nurturing future champions, strength and conditioning support and excellent rehabilitation services. When I started the podcast in June of this year, one of the big things that I wanted to achieve was to bust some myths about mental toughness. That it's not a macho male quality, and B, that you're not either mentally tough nor mentally weak, and that you can actually develop the quality of mental toughness. And in this episode, we touch on all 4 C's from the mental toughness framework that I go from, created by Peter Clough. We look at commitment, we look at challenge, we look at confidence and control. And we talk about various different ways that you can develop all of these different qualities. So how you respond to challenges, how you become more committed to your craft, how you can believe in yourself and how you can go on to control your emotions. All of these things are talked about in this podcast. And it was a fantastic episode. And I really hope that you go on to listen to this and enjoy and pick out some real nuggets of advice. It's great to get the opportunity to chat to a pioneer of female coaching, Natalie Henderson. As it stands, I believe you're the only youth development phase lead female in a men's Premier League academy. Is that right?
I believe so. Yeah, I think so.
Excellent. And excitingly, you're the author of a new book as well, the Players Padlock Pad.
Yeah.
So how are you doing?
I'm okay. I'm not too bad. I'm tired, being very busy, but I like being busy. So yeah, so I'm good. I'm surviving. I'm doing well. Thanks.
So you're tired because of the launch of the book?
Yes, that's right. Yeah. And everything else. I live a busy lifestyle. So, but I like that. I'd be moaning if I didn't have anything to do. So I like busy and I like, being occupied.
Good stuff. Well, to get started, obviously a lot of the listeners maybe don't know much about you. So do you want to just tell the listeners about your route into coaching and how your career has developed?
Yeah. So obviously I work for Newcastle United in the Boys Academy. I oversee the under 13, under 14 age groups. I also work for England Women's in their youth setup. And like you said, I'm now the owner of a new book, which sounds really strange, but to me anyway. But yeah, in terms of my journey into coaching and into football, I've always loved football from the minute I was born. My dad is a huge football fan. So, as soon as I could walk, I was kicking a football. My dad used to love writing gigs, and apparently one of my first words was gigsy. And so I was kind of born into football, really, and played from a young age, signed for Newcastle United girls when I was 7, played for the school football team, which there's a bit of a story to that, to be honest. I was the only girl playing for the school football team. And yeah, the head teacher didn't want a girl on the football team and my mum had to go in and, cause a fuss. And anyway, I played for the school football team as well. Played for Newcastle United throughout all of the Centre of Excellences. That's what they were back then, up until the age of 16. And then played for Newcastle United Reserves, Newcastle United Women, and then signed a contract with Durham, who played in it was a Women's Super League 2 back then. It's Championship now. So I've always played football, but in terms of my coaching career, I started that from a young age, really. As soon as I hit 14, I started to volunteer with the younger age groups in Newcastle United Centre of Excellence. And I think from a very young age, I knew that I wanted to be a football coach. I was laughing the other day because I found a bit of schoolwork from year 6, which said, when I'm older, I want to be a football development coach. So I think I've always knew I wanted to be a coach. So started from a young age at the age of 14. Did my coaching badges relatively as quick as I could, really, as soon as I turned 16. and then suffered a bad ACL injury when I was 18, just before I went to university. And that was probably, when I look back, a blessing in disguise, because it really threw me into my coaching a bit more. So I went head coach of a college, head coach of the county team, part-time work for Newcastle United Foundation. And then my journey's really long. I'm sorry about this. Yeah, you wouldn't think I was only 28. So then left university, went full-time with Newcastle United Foundation, kept my college job as head coach of their women's academy. And then from there, went part-time with Newcastle United Men's Academy, then into full-time at Newcastle United Men's Academy, which is where I still am now. And then in the past, 2 years with the FA in terms of the England stuff as well, really. And that's my journey so far, I guess.
So I'm guessing those experiences, being the only girl player, the ACL, I suppose the various different roles have all played a part in your development and help you as a coach.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's one of those where sometimes it's not until you look back that you realise all of the dots joined together. But I think, ACL injury for me was a huge setback. I'm not sure I was ever going to be, the next Lucy Bronze or the next Jill Scott anyway, but it was all I'd ever known football. So to have the ACL injury was really, a big setback for me. But in terms of when I returned to football after that, I felt like a different player. I really, had the bit between my teeth, and because I'd missed football so much, and I kind of learned never to take it for granted again. So the ACL taught me a lot of things. Being the only girl for the school football team, that was a normal thing. I'm used to, even now people ask, what's it like being a female in a male-dominated environment? For me, that's all I've ever known. So it's fairly normal. But yeah, so ACL injury and the only girl is, you can see them as kind of setbacks when you look back at them now, but they taught me an awful lot in life, really.
And clearly you must be pretty focused. You had the idea, the intention there, you want to be a coach, and yeah, you are like a number of years on. Is that a trait that you've got? Yeah, I think so. I think from obviously a young age, I knew I wanted to be a football development coach. And I think that was through seeing other female role models. For me, I loved the idea of coaching, but I wasn't sure. I never knew you could be a full-time footballer back then as a girl. And then obviously seeing other coaches that were female, I think that gave me, the inspiration to be, I want to be like them. I want to be a coach when I'm older. So I knew from a young age that's what I wanted to do. And I guess I've been, relentless in making sure that that's what I do, really. I like that word, relentless there.
Yeah.
You get that message across to the kids as well when you're coaching.
Yeah, I would hope so. Yeah, I think for me, I'm a big believer in if you were, born with the slightest bit of talent or potential, you should be doing everything you possibly can in your power to unlock that. And I use the word relentless because I guess, I like to think that I would be relentless in my learning and relentless in my journey and where I want to get to. And I would hope that comes across to my players. And I would hope that they say the same, really, in terms of you've got to do everything you can to maximise that potential.
So in some ways, you're talking about attention to detail, and that must be, again, another skill you've got. I'm just wondering, going back to role models, can you mention names in terms of like who your role models were as like female coaches and the skills that they brought to the table?
Yeah, I think, so for me, Lisa Bell, who worked for Newcastle United, it was development scheme back then, it's Newcastle United Foundation now. She was always, one of the only female coaches when I was really young, and probably somebody that I looked up to, really. And like I said before, in terms of gave me that image of, you can be a female football coach. So, Lisa Bell was, you could say, is a big part of my journey. I then played under Melanie Ray, who is now with Sunderland Women, and she was a really good coach. So, like I said, they kind of gave me the inspiration, really, of you can be a full-time female football coach and you can also be a really good one. And I guess I've always wanted to follow in their footsteps, really.
So they give you that hope. What else did you see in them? Like when you think of it now in a coaching capacity, what skills did they highlight?
I think for me, playing under Mel Ray, she had really good knowledge of the game. She was strict, the players were scared of her. And, you could just tell she knew what she was doing, really. And I think that knowledge and that respect that she, got the players to have for her, and in terms of, being professional, they would be like key things, really, that I probably took from Mel. And then obviously Lisa was a very young age. So it was just the fact, just seeing her really was, it made you realise that it was possible.
I like that when you talk about professionalism and respect there. Are they attributes you bring to the table?
Yeah, I would hope so. I think for me, in terms of me as a coach and the way I am, and everybody uses the word philosophy, but in terms of me, I like to work with people. Ultimately, that's the big thing. Is I like working with people, whether they're boys, girls. I like working with people, and I like helping people, and that's the reason I want to be a football coach. And I think role models are important 100%, but the key thing for me is that you take bits from role models, but you still make it authentic to you. So I used to grow up thinking, I want to be the next Mel Ray, or there was other male coaches who I looked up to, who I wanted to be like. And it's only now with experience and with, age, well, not age really, because age and experience are two different things. Now with experience, that I realize actually I want to take bits from them, but I don't want to be them. I still want to be myself. So me as a coach, there's bits that I take from them: professionalism, having respect, being strict with your standards. They're all things that I think that I have in my coaching. But I have other bits as well in terms of, for me, I'm a big people lover. So I want to have good relationships with my players. I want to have good relationships with staff. I want them to know that I care about them. I want to know what makes them tick, what motivates them. And I want to think of them as people rather than players. They would be the key bits of me as a coach, really, I think.
I like that. When you're talking there about the relationship between you and the players, like really, really important. And I suppose treating them as an individual would be important. But at the same time, I can imagine that can be quite tough at times in your role when you've got a squad of, 20 odd players.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's one of the key things for me is knowing the individual. That is absolutely paramount. And I think one of my favourite quotes is, players don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And that for me epitomises me and my philosophy, really. And I think that they are individuals. People are different. We're all different. We all have different motivations. We're all inspired in different ways. That is it. We are human beings and we're all different. So I think knowing the individual is absolutely key. And then in terms of how you deal with that in football, with it being a team sport, the academy is very much around individuals in terms of who are we trying to get into that first team. We're not producing squads, we're producing individuals. But yeah, I think it's difficult. If you've got 20 players and you want to know each individual the best you can, it's being very tactical in how you go about that. And I think, that would be the thing, is you have to kind of be meticulous with it, really. I often, when I'm driving into sessions, will think about who I've maybe spent more time with this week, who haven't I been able to speak to, who am I going to make sure when I'm setting up on the pitch that I purposely go and have a little chat with, and being strategic about those relationships, really. They would be some key things.
I can imagine, because there'll be times where, I don't know, if you use a harsher tone potentially with someone and it could be perceived in the wrong way. They might have had might be having a difficult period at home or something like that, can go on to impact them going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's where it's key to know them, really. Some players need an arm around their shoulder. Other players, need a stern word, and you get more out of them that way. If one of them's had a bad day at school, it's pretty important we know that before we start shouting at them in training, because we don't want to tip them over the edge. So I think knowing things like that in terms of what their frame of mind is at that moment before that session is important. But I also think the personal bit's important, asking them how their family is, asking them how their brothers and sisters are doing, who's their favourite teacher at school. All those personal questions really are the ones that I try to tap into, really, because I think that's how, it goes a long way, doesn't it? If people really care about you as a person and they know about your family and they ask about your family. And so, yeah, I think the personal questions as well are just as important as the football questions, really.
Yeah, no, I'd agree, because yeah, straight away they're going to feel valued, aren't they? And yeah, when you talk about respect earlier, you've got their instant respect, I would have thought.
Yeah, I would hope so anyway. Yeah.
So let's talk about some challenges that you've had in your coaching and how you've overcome them. Have you got a few that spring to mind?
People always, this is always a main question, really. I think for me, obviously there is big things that stand out. The ACL injury was a challenge in my football career. In coaching, I was always the only woman on a football course, or, my level 1, the only woman. Level 2, maybe there's me and one other woman, and then 28 men. So I think they could be like standout challenges that I've always faced. But for me, challenges come every day, and there might not be big ones, but there might be small ones. So I think in terms of challenges, yes, there's probably loads that I have to deal with, but a lot of them come on a daily basis, and small challenges. By that I could mean difficult conversations with staff or with players. Releasing players is obviously a big part of my job. So sitting with parents and players, telling them they're not going to be a footballer for Newcastle United anymore is they're tough challenges, really. So there is some standout ones in terms of ACL, being the only woman, etc., etc. But for me, it's the small challenges that we overcome every day that I feel are probably more important and probably build character as well.
There's two things that stand out there to me, where you talk about, I suppose being the only female on courses and different things like that. I would imagine to some people that could be quite hard, because they might compare themselves against other people, and you see it a lot in, like, with young players, don't you, where they compare themselves to teammates and worry a lot about other people's thoughts. I'm guessing from the way you're talking, you're quite single-minded in some ways and don't let it worry you.
I think people probably do think that. I mean, I'm a big worrier, and people don't think this, and people think I'm really like confident and outgoing and it's all going smooth, and but I'm a big worrier, and I'm a huge overthinker. So when I do enter a room and realize I'm the only woman, it doesn't bother me a great amount, because, like I said before, it's all I've ever known. It's normal to me. But I think I do worry about things at times. I think challenges they come every day, really, and I think that's what builds character, really.
Touching on the other thing you mentioned about releasing players, how hard is that as a coach?
Yeah, that is the toughest part of the job, really. And I think any coach would say that, it's not nice. You've got players that are dreaming of being footballers, and you're sitting there telling them it's not going to happen, or certainly not yet anyway. That would be the key thing. But yeah, so that's a really difficult part. But there's loads of challenges in terms of that's obviously a difficult part, a hard part. For me, I always find that really hard because, like I said before, my philosophy and the way I am, I like to know the player. I like to have a good relationship with the player. I like to be liked. That would be a key thing. People say, "Oh, I'm not bothered what people think." Like, I am. I would like somebody to like me. I think that's only human. So to then sit there after having a great relationship with that player, to then breaking his heart ultimately is the hardest bit of the job. But it has to be done, and that's elite football, really. We have to make decisions. We're paid to make decisions, and that's the football world.
What message would you give to any listeners who've got any children who have been released? So, like, what message would you give to the children if you are released from an academy?
Yeah, I think for me, the big challenges that I always think, and the things that I try to say, is that it's not necessarily the end of the road for them. Football is a matter of opinion at times, and just because one club doesn't maybe see your potential doesn't mean another club won't. I always say to the players, if they do get released or if they're on trial and we haven't registered them, that it's not the end of the road. Go away, work really hard, keep believing in yourself. Keep maximising that potential and doing everything you can to be a footballer, because a lot of kids want to be footballers, but they don't understand the work that they have to put in to be one, and keep going with it, really. So I think it's one of those that I always urge them, don't throw the towel in. It's not the end of your dream. That would be the one thing. We're not saying you're never going to be a footballer. We're just saying right now the time is not right, and you're not at the level that you maybe should be at, but go away, work hard, and the dream could become a reality one day.
Yeah, and that is the reality as well, isn't it? That like nobody's journey is exactly the same. To get into football, you could be released at 8, 9 years old, then come back into it 2 or 3 years later, or you could be released at 14, then come back into it. It's just hugely different.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the key thing. There's loads of there's good examples of it in terms of, players in the Premier League that were released from clubs at an early age and they went to another club, and everybody has a different journey, and that links to the human element before. We're all different. We all have different journeys. And just because your journey is different to somebody else's doesn't necessarily mean that you're not going to make it as a footballer. Just every journey is different.
Yeah, and the key really is, if you are released, is like how you come to bounce back and display that resilience ultimately.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think resilience is a massive thing. And I think setbacks build character and build resilience and build that mental toughness. And although they're horrible at the time, I've had them myself, they're uncomfortable. I said at the very start, it's not until you look back that the dots seem to join together and you're like, oh yeah, that might be why that happened. But yeah, I think embrace setbacks as much as you possibly can, learn as much as you possibly can for them, and use them moving forward, really.
And does your book that you've written, obviously it's a journal, I would imagine that actually helps players in that respect through setbacks, and you mentioned about overthinking and actually getting things out of their head? Yeah,
absolutely. The whole purpose of the journal, the Players Journal, to be honest, was in lockdown. Everybody went on, shut down basically. And then also Newcastle United, we were put on furlough, which meant that we couldn't contact the players. We couldn't see how they were doing. And that was the first time in my life after coaching for 14 years that I wasn't allowed to get in touch with players and see how they are. And I felt like I'd lost all purpose. I felt, I was worried about them. I was concerned they weren't going to have what they need. And I think that's where the whole idea came from, really, is that I wanted to be able to lock something in one place that you could hand to a player, that if coaches were taken away from them, teams were taken away from them, they had something there that was going to help them. And the whole, the Player Padlock Pad, the journal, is a complete blend between what they need in youth football and to become a footballer in terms of their mindset, also the technical and tactical attributes that they're going to need, blended with like positive mental health, having that positive growth mindset that's going to help you, off the pitch as well. And that's where the idea came from, really, in terms of I felt like I lost my purpose and I wanted to be able to help players and I couldn't. And this was my way of being able to go, there you go, there's a player journal that you can have forever, and it's going to help you in your football journey.
It sounds like you used your time really wisely in lockdown.
I wasn't making banana bread, I tell you that. Yeah, I was. I put everything, blood, sweat, and tears went into that player journal. But it's going really well, and it's took off much bigger than I thought, and a lot of players have got it. And I think that's the biggest thing for me, is I wanted to give them something that'll help them, and it's everything that I've learned from, in all of my years of coaching, from the academy, from international level. It's everything I've learned, and I've tried to lock it in one place and give it to a player, really. So yeah, they would be key things in it.
That sounds fantastic. The fact that you're combining the tactical, the technical, and the psychological bit as well, with mental health and, like you say, mindset. I'm going to have to get a copy and have a good read of it and finish some of your ideas.
I think the big thing for me is, obviously, I'm learning myself as well, so I'm trying to get better at this stuff, and because of the whole lockdown, I started trying to journal myself. So I would set myself little goals for the day and reflect on them over night time. And it's amazing how much you forget that you do in a day. I often say in football, it's like being in the hamster wheel or being on a treadmill. Time goes by so fast and you can't keep up sometimes. And I think for me, the power of writing things down and getting those feelings out of your head onto paper, even that in itself is a massive relief. And for me, it's like therapy. So that's the reason I did that. And, also phones, we need to get off our phones. I could have created an app, but for me, there's no, writing pen to paper is really powerful. You pick up your phone, you get distracted. So to take some time out for yourself and trying to get to grips with your feelings and what's going on with your feelings and your emotions and how you are motivated and how you're not is really important.
Yeah, I'd agree. You're just that art of actually getting stuff out of your head and writing things down. It's amazing, actually, like how much you learn about yourself in different situations, and like regardless of whether that's on a football pitch or not, but just in life in general. And like part of the battle is actually just bringing those to your attention, so you can go on and make different changes to get better at things. Yeah,
absolutely. And for me, I think nobody should know you better than you. And I think that self-awareness is huge. And I think if you know yourself, then that helps you become a better person or a better footballer, if you like. If you can, really get to grips with why you feel in certain ways and what makes you tick, what motivates you. I think, self-awareness is massive. And often I find that people that are the most self-aware are the most successful in life. I think that's a trick to unlocking potential, and which is why I wanted that to be a big part of it, really.
No, I'd agree. Like part of like the mental toughness framework that I use in my work, you've got an element called learning orientation. In effect, what I mean by that is like learning from your mistakes. And like nowadays, like you say, with phones, it's just so obvious that people spend so much time on their phones. And you hear it again a lot. People just don't actually learn from their mistakes. They just keep repeating and repeating and repeating. Where, I think this, it's amazing what you've done there, creating the journal, because if people do follow through with it, then they are going to see results. They are going to see changes in their behaviour going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And I hope so. I hope that it helps a lot of players on the pitch, definitely, because it does have that tactical side in around what could they do better, but then also just knowing themselves as a person and getting to grips with their feelings and their emotions. And like you said, even like with phones, there's so many distractions in the world now that we'll do anything to distract ourselves as humans. To how often do you sit with your own mind and just think about how you're feeling? Not often, because you're always distracted by something. So it tries to encourage that, really. And I think that was the key thing. I wanted to lock a healthy mindset and positive mental health and what you need to be a footballer in one place. And I think I've managed to do that, and hopefully players will benefit from it.
No, well done. I was just thinking to a scenario which frustrates me a little bit as a football fan, when you see a winger going down the wing and then they cross the ball and they invariably hit the first man, or they'll hit it too long. Rather than spending 5 minutes on Facebook or on Instagram or something like that, if they spend 5 minutes in your journal writing down what they were thinking at that time and about that scenario, what their body shape was like, things like that, then they might start crossing the ball a bit more consistently. Yeah, I hope so. The journal's going to make people cross like David Beckham. That's what I heard. So, but no, you're right, absolutely. And I think obviously they need to put pen to paper and write things down and try and really zoom in on themselves and their development. But they also need to get out on the pitch and practice it as well. And that's covered in the journal. Really, you've got to, if you don't practice something, don't expect to be excellent at it, because excellence takes lots of practice and practice becomes permanent. So, but yeah, hopefully they can all cross a ball by the time they've read the journal. Yeah, they'll listen to this with a bit of luck. Yeah. So for young players out there, could you share 3 takeaways from the conversation we've had that could really benefit them?
Yeah, I think never stop learning would be the key one. I am obsessed with learning. There is so much to learn in this world. Don't think you ever know it all, because you're not going to. And I think the minute you do think you know it all, you're doomed, really. So a key takeaway would be never stop learning. Learn as much as possible on the pitch, off the pitch, through films, through sessions, through people's conversations. I try and learn something from anything, really. So yeah, that would be one key one, never stop learning. The second one would be to never stop believing in yourself. whether you work in football or you don't, or involved in football or you're not, never stop believing in yourself. I think you've got to trust your own instincts and give it your everything, really. So my second one would definitely be that, believe in yourself and keep doing what you're doing, really. And then the third one would be to maximize that potential. So every day, am I doing something that's going to help me get better? What are the small gains that you could be doing to maximize everything you possibly can to be the best person and player you can be? And whether that's sitting writing in a journal, getting out on the pitch, practicing crosses, learning from people's conversations, learning from films, that, maximize your time, which we don't get a lot of, by the way. Life goes very quick. Every minute counts, so maximize as much potential as possible, really.
Yeah, I agree. So the three things there, we've got never stop learning, never stop believing in yourself, and then seek to maximize your potential with the way you spend your time. The one there about never stop learning, it's amazing how many people, I suppose, have the fear of failure, where, I don't know, maybe in a football setting, if you're a forward, if you have 2 or 3 shots on goal, and then all of a sudden you go missing for a period in the game, or you start hiding. Whereas if they were to try and reframe that into a learning mentality, that wouldn't happen. Do you see that sort of thing often?
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's one of the things I always tell my players, really. I would rather you get on the ball and keep giving it away than not get on the ball at all and hide. Because, that shows true character, really. And I think we've got to be courageous in life. We've got to be brave in life. And I think, failure is good. Failure is what makes you better. If you use it in the right way, it's the fuel to making you better. So don't ever be afraid to fail. I think we all fail in life at something. And it's how we use that failure to maximize that potential, really. So yeah, 100% failure is uncomfortable. It feels horrible. You feel embarrassed and ashamed. And I think it's really important to take in those feelings and use them in the right way to make you better. So failures are good for me. I think that's what helps you.
Yeah, just to channel them, like you say, in the right direction. I like that. And then the last one was a question you mentioned there about, am I doing something each and every day to get better, to maximize your potential? That was another thing that sprung to mind I really liked. So yeah, thank you.
And I think that's where the word relentless comes in before. I think every day we should be relentless at getting better, and trying to be, we're not talking about football here, we're just talking about better people. Every day, are we doing everything we can, and are we being relentless and becoming a better person? And you can take days off. They're nice as well. But, as long as you're trying harder than what you're taking days off, then you'll be all right.
Yeah, you do. Like you say, you do need that little bit of downtime just to recharge the batteries and go again. Yeah, I think, gosh, that's quite a nice way to to finish the episode. So, yeah, thank you for your time. You've given some fascinating insights into your career, your journey, and then some wonderful advice for young players. So thank you. Whereabouts can the listeners find you? So I am on Instagram under N Henderson Coaching, and then obviously the new player reflection journal, which is named the Player Padlock Pad, is under Instagram as Padlock Pad, so you can follow there. And also have a website, which is padlockpad.com, where you can find out more about the player reflection journal, more about myself, and you can also order it through the website. Excellent. So in the show notes for this episode, I'll make sure the link to your book there is included. Perfect. Thanks very much. Not a problem. So yeah, it's been nice. Thank you. Yeah, thank you as well. It's been great chatting. Thanks very much. After having that conversation with Natalie, I'm pretty sure that this podcast does what it says on the tin. It was my hope to bust some myths around mental toughness, and certainly the way Natalie eloquently put across different points and different tips and advice there, I believe that we've done that. We've shown that mental toughness is a quality that can be developed, and there are so many different ways that you can go about it, from a tactical and technical level to the psychological level. And journaling is certainly one of those aspects to it. So as I mentioned a little bit earlier, you'll see in the show notes a link to Natalie's book there, to the website. Please go on and read it. I'm sure it'll be really, really helpful for you in your life and in your football or in your chosen sport. There's also a link in the show notes if you'd like to book a session or if you'd like to have a chat with myself about how you can go about developing your mental toughness. And also a little reminder that it's not long now. The 30th of November is the day that I'm going to be launching a new Facebook group. It's a support group for ambitious athletes, ambitious coaches and parents, where myself, I'll be sharing lots of content. I'll also be bringing the community together, bringing guests into the environment, where we share some great ideas and great concepts to motivate you, especially through periods like lockdown right now, or through periods where you've lost a little bit of confidence. There'll be great resources for coaches there to help with their own personal development, to help themselves, as well as professionally to help their athletes. There's going to be lots of information, lots going on. It'll also be a nice fun environment too, so I'll have plenty of laughs in there as well. So keep an eye out on the show notes, keep an eye out on my social media for the link so that you can join the group. And I look forward to seeing you there in the near future. I'd like to give a big thanks to today's sponsors, Functional Intelligent Training, who are a sports injury clinic located in Gosforth near Newcastle upon Tyne and specialise in athlete development, nurturing future champions, strength and conditioning support and excellent rehabilitation services. Thank you for listening to Demystifying Mental Toughness today. To sign up for tips and advice to help you be the best that you can be, go to www.sport-excellence.co.uk and sign up to the Mental Edge newsletter.